And we're live, guys. We got Patrick here. And we're going to get into a convo. So, Patrick and I actually met through a mutual friend, Diane Darling. So, thank you, Diane. I think you guys met at a Staples, if I'm not mistaken. And that's just kind of an interesting pivot for that business where they decided to enter the co working space. And I'm sure now they're thinking of ways to pivot once again because I think co working is taking a long, hard break for a little
Mm,
while. Now it's about home working. So,
pretty
to,
much.
right, that's what I'm thinking. I was kind of inspired by a conversation that I had with Patrick here, and really talking about a couple of goals that he specifically has to be able to leverage technology, to be able to leverage Dubb specifically on really growing his podcast, growing his viewership, monetizing his efforts, monetizing general creation of content, building relationships with guests that turn into long-term client relationships to fuel his business, his freelance business of providing strategy, consultation, design, branding, things like this. And we're going to kind of get into a very specific conversation around how he can do a lot of these things using Dubb. So, Patrick, did I miss anything? Did I get anything wrong? Love to get your take on
No,
that.
that was a fantastic professional summary of
Okay. All right.
what I'm
Great.
trying to do.
I had
Better
some
as
notes.
I think than I could do. So great
Great.
job.
I had some notes here, so not all of that came from memory. So the first thing I wanted to get into was this idea of the waterfall method. And
Mm,
this is a method that we developed actually by mistake. And it really kind of leans into this idea that we, as communicators and as storytellers, can speak in long form content very easily. We can talk for 10 or 20 minutes, and
mhm.
without real problems, right? You can take
Yeah.
pauses, you can take breaks, you can speak off the top of the dome. But when you want to speak in a really concise and specific and pithy fashion, say something in 60 seconds, get an elevator pitch out. It's actually really difficult because you have to take everything that's in your mind and you need to culminate it down into something almost spiritual that someone can understand. If it's simple, if you understand something and if you can explain it in 30 seconds, then other people can understand it. But if you
Mhm.
can't do that, then other people are never going to be able to understand it. It takes a lot of time to do that with a brand or with a service or with a product or with an idea. It takes a long time to do that. So the waterfall method is essentially taking long form content and then converting it into short form content to fuel all your social channels. So, for
Mm,
example, you and I are creating a long form content right now. This is going to be a 25 or 35-minute conversation, and you and I are going to get some content out of this. And what's really interesting about that is that that content can then be cut up and then to put on different social channels. So you and I mentioned Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even TikTok, Medium, LinkedIn, YouTube. All these channels can actually get content, and that can all come from a conversation like this, right?
mm,
So what we always recommend for people to do is to start at the long form and then to mine the shorter form content from that, because after the fact in post production you can go and you can cut out that snippet where you finally get, after 7 minutes of talking, you finally get that drop where
mhm.
it's concise. So we always recommend people to do that, and that's what Dubb does, like on a constant basis. That's why we have 5 to 7 conversations just like this on a daily basis across our whole team, and then that's what fuels our social channels. Another thing that we do is we take these conversations and we turn them into blogs. And the way that that looks is that when you have a long form conversation like this, there's a topic that we're doing, like how to use Dubb for this, or how to leverage technology for that, or how to do X, Y, and Z. And that's a blog. That's a 400 word blog or even a 4,000 word blog post. The beauty of this method is that you don't necessarily need to do the writing yourself. You can, based on listening to the thing after the fact, but what you can do is you can take this conversation and you can put it into a service like otter.ai or rev.com or even YouTube, and you
Mhm.
can generate a transcription from that. And that transcription can then get converted into a blog post. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing an exact copy over. That's not going to be great. It is going to require a little bit of writing, but it is a fantastic starting point. It's basically giving someone and some fuel to a writer that they can go trigger and create that blog post. Why do we need blog posts? Well, simple. Social media is for ephemeral, instant posting. Once it's done after 24 to 48 hours, it's gone. People don't see it anymore. Blog posts, they live forever. That's evergreen content. That is in the same realm as YouTube, and it's so valuable, in my opinion, to drive evergreen content. A lot of people are focused on social, and that's great, but doing a video on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you're just going to have to continue to do it, which you should. Whereas blog and YouTube is the gift that keeps giving. Now, of course, on social, you get followers and people expect to hear from you, but of course, you do need that cadence. So, blog, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Medium, TikTok, if you're into that. That's 9 channels right there. Medium, that's 10. So, let's fuel all those channels, because at the end of the day, we got to be omnipresent, okay? Omni-channel, dare I use that jargon. So just looking at my notes here, the way that we use podcasting for Dubb, and the way that, and I think that you and I actually connected through this, is we have a very specific link. In fact, we have dozens here at Dubb. Every person has multiple links that they use for calendar booking pages, for Zoom pages. These are just short URLs that we create, or they're just created right on the Dubb platform. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show my booking page. And I'm going to just dissect this and just kind of show under the hood here. So this is my podcast invitation page right here.
I recognize this.
Which you've seen before, right? So this is just me praying to the heavens and praying that someone will actually click on the calls to action below. And here I have my multiple buttons here, which is get a free account. Got to pay the bills. When I say pay the bills, some people subscribe to Dubb, some people don't. Some people use the free account, which we're totally cool with. So the free account's got some cool features. Book a time with Ruben, which is this calendar integration below, and then check out episodes, which is just an external link to, I think, our podcast on Apple. So if you guys are a listener, all right, well, that's a dead link. So one of the things that you got to make sure is that your URLs are intact on your pages. So I'm going to go and do some homework on this and just make sure that that's intact. And then, of course, the calendar section right here is an integration with Book Like a Boss, which I like. We also integrate with Calendly and Schedule Once and Acuity Scheduler and HubSpot and pretty much any calendar system that you can name. So this is kind of a way for someone to book a time and then select that time and just be directly in my calendar. This has saved me hours and hours and hours. I have one of these calendar booking pages for pretty much every aspect of my business, for whether it's a sales call or whether it's a podcast recording or whether it's a strategy session or whether it's a press pitch or an investor pitch, the story goes on. There's a lot of these pages that I have. So I encourage people to create a page like this and then integrate their calendar and then start to send that to people with your story on why they should book a time with you. And what you'll notice is that people will the conversion rate of your booking will increase dramatically. So Patrick, when you can, take a peek in the chat there. I can send you some stuff
Sure.
there as well that we can communicate with. So okay, I'm going to move on to another idea, which is Dubb for storytelling. Okay, so Dubb for storytelling is I want to just take a quick moment here, and that now more than ever, what we really need to be doing is to be telling our stories. And hearing stories, I think, is what motivates people to want to connect with them, to do business with them. So, for example, when I heard your story about how you were working as a mechanical engineer, and then you had ideas and thoughts of kind of moving over into the independent realm, that was inspiring to me. And I'd love to hear that story, and that made me want to connect with you and do a podcast with you and do everything else, right? So I think that video is just a very powerful channel for that, because we can show our human emotion, and it works a lot better than text. The problem with texting and emailing is that people don't really get the nuance and the feeling of what you're saying through your text. People often
absolutely know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. So people often, and I want to get your take on that. Real quick, I will say that people read what they're feeling. So if they're in a pissy mood, that's exactly the tone that they're going to read in. So what is your take on that, Patrick?
Yeah, you said it absolutely right. I think that text tends to get people to read it in a sarcastic tone. So the amount of false sarcasm that's read in text is really, I think, misleading. And emojis were a good, um, a better way of dealing with that, but yet a still very imperfect way. And text by itself is not only monotonous, but you really just don't get the tone at all. So much of what people say, they say with their facial expressions, their tone of voice, and their body language,
That's
and you
so
miss all
true.
of that. So
That's so true. Yeah. Emojis, people, we have emojis on Dubb. You can turn them on and off. And a lot of corporate people want them to be off. Like we used to
yeah.
get this request in our chat, how do I turn the emojis off? And we put that switch front and center. Emojis actually solve a really important problem. They were
Mhm.
invented back in the mid 90s. This problem that they solve is that you can't read emotion. To your point, you said it perfectly right. You can't read emotion from text. Whereas an emoji is going to show crying or smiling or laughing
Mm.
or prayer, whatever it is, and then from that you can at least understand, what the person was feeling. Like I'll respond sometimes with a 1 or 2 word answer in an email
Mhm.
or a text, and then I'll put an emoji just so that. And my emoji is the prayer emoji, which is Namaste, which is I
Yeah.
see the light in you and invite you to see the light in me. I just go to that. It says prayer,
Mhm.
and I don't like that because this is not about prayer. This is about connecting with people.
Yeah. I
Um,
bet a lot of people misread that.
yeah, yeah. So you know what? You're probably right. You're probably right. But now in COVID-19, this is the new handshake. So maybe
Yeah.
not anymore. Not the elbow bump, not the foot bump. No, no, no. The 6 feet away namaste, right?
Maybe in the next round of emoji updates, they'll have that. And by the
Thank
way,
you.
the palette that they have of the emojis, the 120 faces or whatever, there's a lot of them. But the human face and the reality of the human is so dynamic and nuanced that you're still highly restricted by the obviously the emojis
Oh
that you
yeah,
have available to you, right? So
that's
I mean,
true.
yeah,
That's
I
true.
started using more of them too. I used to think it was kind of a dumb thing, like
Yeah.
kind of okay, this is a little bit weird, and then I just realized that you know what, text is just so limiting. I'm going to have to start using them, and so I do have just like you have your hands, your
Yeah.
namaste hands is your favorite. I have a couple that I use all the time. Probably the that
Yeah.
emoji, the thinking emoji a lot.
Totally.
Mind
That's cool.
blown emoji.
That's cool. That's cool. One of the things that I wanted to kind of show you real quickly, actually, someone asked us today how we can create. This is kind of a specific nuance thing. You might find it interesting, but
Mhm.
I hope you do, man, because I really think that you should be on YouTube, and I think that you've got a great personality, and for you to be a quote unquote YouTuber, I think the world would want to see that if you start to really vlog what you're up to and provide advice and whatnot. So,
Thank you for saying that.
yeah. So, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, and there's about 2 videos on it right now.
Okay,
I want to
perfect.
start putting on more video content.
Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. Awesome. So I want you to pretend like we're going to take that YouTube URL of yours, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a call to action on Dubb using that YouTube URL,
Mhm.
but to add a really specific thing that most people do not know about. Okay, so here it is: how to add YouTube subscribe link or a button on Dubb as a call to action. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, well, I need to share my screen. So in my screen here, I'm in the calls to action, right? So what I'm going to
Mhm.
title this is YouTube subscribe, and then the type is URL. So I'm going to paste this URL here. Okay, this is our YouTube URL, youtube.com/Dubb app. In case
Mhm.
people don't know, we have a daily show on YouTube called The Daily Dubb, and it's a lot of fun, and it's vloggy, and it's informational, educational, edited, directed by Shannon. Go take a peek at that. Once again, The Daily Dubb on YouTube. Take a peek at that. So sub_confirmation, question mark, sub_confirmation equals 1. This is the magic ticket right here. So with this right here, what happens is that, well, first let me say subscribe on YouTube. And then what that's specifically going to do now is that it's going to allow me to have a button on my Dubb video page that allows people to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And what's
Mhm.
interesting about this is that it's kind of a smart parameter, because if the person is already subscribed, absolutely nothing will happen. If the person is not subscribed, then what's going to happen is that they are going to have to, or they're going to have the option to to subscribe to the channel. And that just means that it's just going to be a persistent button on top of my YouTube page, the Daily Dubb YouTube page, that people can then click on. So if you, now I'm just going to kind of give you a quick preview of what that looks like. Here we are on that Dubb page, that same one that I showed before. Hey, it's Ruben, the founder of Dubb. I have autoplay on, so this video autoplays. And then if you click on this, then what's going to happen is I'm already subscribed, so I'm not going to see anything most probably, but if you're not subscribed, then when you click on this, you will see something. And what you will see specifically is the subscribe button that happens. It's a little modal. It's just a little screen that happens right here that says subscribe, and then people can click on it. So this is our favorite way to drive subscribers. There is an embed YouTube button that people can use, but we haven't found that that really works because people typically don't subscribe to a channel unless they can get a preview of what the content looks like and say, hey, you know what, there's some thumbnails and there's some content here and this is not spammy and I'm in. Nice colors, nice branding, whatever it is. And then at that point, of course, they click on the subscribe button. So we recommend doing this model where you actually drive the traffic to the YouTube page instead of putting some sort of an embed on a WordPress page or on a website, something like this. So, yeah. So that's kind of my take on that. But, you know, I think that's enough about the Dubb world. I'd love to get into a combo with you about, you know, this idea of taking a side idea or a side hustle or an ambition and then parlaying that into something kind of full-time. Like, what do you have to do for that? What are the setup steps? How do you get the runway going? What is the infrastructure? Who are your first customers? How do you sell to people when you don't have a product yet? So I'd love to kind of get into that topic with you a little bit. You know, I'd love with just starting to hear your story, really.
Okay, so let's see. I, as you said before, I was a mechanical engineer, and I went to school at Northeastern in Boston. So it was a 5-year undergrad program with actually work built into it. It's called the co-op program. And so when I went to high school, there was no engineering program. So it was kind of a little bit of an off-the-cuff decision. And you know, when people are 17, 18, they have to make that career choice. They make it for kind of quick, not fully thought out reasons. And my main reasons were it had, you know, some prestige associated with it and had a good economic payout, essentially. But it wasn't really, ultimately, I didn't realize it at the time, it wasn't the thing that I really wanted to do. It wasn't what actually inspired me, right? And so 5 years or a couple of years into it at college, I was thinking, oh, well, you know, my experience so far, it's just really been it's been internship. So this might not actually be what it's like. So, you know, I got into the real world and was doing 3 years at a company, and then pretty much from the very beginning, I just said, well, I don't want to judge it right off the bat, this real world experience, because you know, I want to see what it really fully is, and I don't want to be seen as that millennial that's just leaving after 6 months or something like that. So 3 years later, or 2.5 years later, I was saying to myself, I have got to find something different. It wasn't just the company that I was in. It was also sort of the corporate, like I just realized that I was not somebody that did good in an environment where I was being managed. I wanted to be my own independent person and to have autonomy. And so at first I started looking at other jobs other corporate jobs, different types of jobs that existed. I was thinking maybe if I just found a different company or a different role in the company or something. And then I really realized that what I was looking for was so sort of unique that it was very unlikely that I was going to find that pre-existing, pre-packaged job someplace else. So that's when I really started to build as much of a plan that I could. And all you can really do is shrink the gap, the leap of faith as much as possible. There's always going to be a leap of faith. It's just how much of the leap you have to take. You know what I mean? Like, you can only plan something so much ahead of time. So back in June, which is, I don't know, 9 months ago now, that's when I decided to leave the company I was in. And what I wanted to do was create a podcast that was sort of similar to, I would say, I wanted to emulate the Joe Rogan experience vibe, where I wanted to have a platform that people could come on and have open conversation about any number of things, whatever they were into. I wanted to talk with subject matter experts, people that had something that was really important to them that they didn't have another maybe avenue to talk about it. And you know, I think I had mentioned, I'm not sure if it was recorded during this podcast so far or if it was something we were talking about before, but you were talking about how you had an interest in martial arts, and that kind of
Yeah.
focuses on the body, right? And having some degree of self control when it comes to that. What I wanted to do was the mind as well, but what I wanted to do was talk about things that really allowed people to broaden their mind, right? And there are just so many conversations right now that aren't being had, and society is changing in so many ways, and people are really stressed out and anxious, and I was thinking to myself, how can I present a way that people can have these conversations? So that's what I've been trying to do. And the tough thing, obviously, is monetizing that. And so originally the idea was, well, let me try to just focus, not completely forget monetizing, but focus on getting the best content out as quickly as possible and getting people used to my content. And then I can shift towards monetizing. It's kind of the idea of like dropping off into it. So that's what I was talking about before, where the freelance was how I was paying for my day to day. Not trying to get rich off the freelance, but it just allows me to pay my bills, and then I can focus on the other thing as I grow on the side. So
Exactly.
that's really the whole idea of it.
Right. Well, here's kind of what I did
Mhm.
with our podcast is, we believe in this philosophy of sales overnight, brand over time. We say that a lot. And it's very possible to accomplish that. A lot of people think that if you're going to go on YouTube or go create a podcast or go write stuff, that it's a long haul. And a lot of people will tell you that. Most people will tell you, and they're right to a certain extent, that if you start
Mhm.
to write a book or if you start to write a podcast, don't expect to make money from that ever. I mean, maybe there's a 1% chance or a 0.01% chance that you're actually going to be able to monetize it down the
Yeah.
line. I totally disagree with that. I think that that doesn't make any sense because right now you and I are having a conversation. We're building trust. I just
Mhm.
pitched you on Dubb. You just pitched me on some of your services. The why behind us. You know, this is better than a sales call. I would do this any day of the week over a sales call.
Mhm.
Where it's not overly salesy and overly communicative, but rather it's about just person to person. So a podcast and the podcast that we created, Connection Loop, that's Dubb's podcast, is that it's just a conversation with people that either are not yet in the Dubb fam or community, they already
Mhm.
are, or they're someone that just is relevant to the whole topic of storytelling and visual and video and marketing and sales and whatever it is that we're doing. So
Sure.
we just kind of figured out a way to parlay all these conversations into larger brand building, but then ultimately, to drive sales for Dubb. But we don't do,
Mhm.
at least I try not to do it in a very salesy way. I mean, if I ever, I have to kind of self-regulate, and if I ever find myself being overly salesy, there's just a
Mhm.
little voice in my head that says, stop being salesy, don't sell here. That doesn't really work. Just
Yeah.
provide value, show people tips and tricks, and then they can kind of figure out stuff on their own. So, but that model has worked really well for us. In the beginning, we were doing outbound sales and outbound emails, and we didn't know how to sell. I mean, it was really difficult because it was disgruntling. It was depressing, because you'd send all this stuff out, and then you'd get really nasty emails sometimes, where it's
Mhm.
like, take me off your list. Don't ever do this. Don't ever do that. And that really just messes with your soul. And
Mhm.
you know, back to like martial arts, I've been working with a master. His name is Master Sifu Ed, who's a disciple of Bruce Lee, and he worked with one of the direct disciples of Bruce Lee, Sifu Jerry, and he's an eighth degree black belt, very very humble guy.
Mhm.
He's in his 60s now, and he's just a badass. But he's so humble. He doesn't flaunt his stuff. He doesn't walk around with his black belt. He doesn't do that. Like, he's a very chill guy, and people are attracted to him. People come to him because they want wisdom and they want
Mhm.
to learn things. And it's really interesting. Everyone treats them with respect. And, I feel like there's this idea of, demand generation, getting people to want to be attracted to you, inbound marketing or,
Mhm.
pull-based marketing. And I feel like a podcast is such a great way to do that because we can, I hate saying thought leadership. In fact, I won't say it. We can share our stories and we can give a little bit of insight here and then people can listen in on that and then hopefully most importantly for me is really learn on how to do stuff for their business but then also be entertained by it. What's wrong with that? Why can't we be educated and entertained at the same time? I see myself, final thing I want to say on this point is that I see myself as a student at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Every that's the most valuable thing that I get out of this is that I learn things from people. So
Yep.
that's my biggest thing. So
I certainly agree with you, Ruben. It's like, and you mentioned before, it's not about the hard sell. It's not about just ego stroking. There's really such a, I can't even tell if it's an ancillary benefit or it's the main purpose of it, but it's like you're connecting people in a way that it basically allows free flow of ideas and collaboration on projects that like if we're alive at a time where people open source ideas and they have minimum viable products and everybody's kind of contributing to each other's ideas um, in a way that you're familiar probably with the term reciprocity. It's like I'm doing this for you, and at some future point in time, you might do
that's
something
that
for
that's
me.
that great that's that great album by the Police, right? No, that's actually Synchronicity.
Sacred. Yeah. So these ideas and obviously you get innovation with competition and things like that, but you can have a more collaborative type competition, and you get all these buzzwords that surround this stuff, like what is this synergy and stuff like that. But there's so much actual truth to this that all these ideas they become better, and it's almost like sea glass tumbling in the ocean. Like over time, it's just like the rough edges get smoothed off, and you end up with really great ideas and concepts. And it's not like a losing model. You can actually also make money at it.
I love that analogy, man. I used to collect. I remember when I was a kid, I went to the beach once and I collected rocks and broken
Mhm.
glass. And by the way, when I became certified in scuba diving with through Patty,
Mhm.
they made it a mantra. They said, only leave your footprint and only take the memories. So
Yeah.
I stopped taking stuff from the ocean. I don't like shells and rocks and stuff. I don't take that. The only thing I try to take is memories and trash.
Mhm.
Usually it's more trash and memories.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But what I was going to say though is that I remember taking some of those little pieces and going to a teacher and showing, hey, look what these cool things that I found on the beach. And she's like, those are just rocks and trash. What's wrong with you? But there's something really beautiful that you can find, I think, and I love the way that you just presented that, of taking really sharp and rough and something that's a commodity, but then turning it into something beautiful that someone might enjoy. And I think
Mm.
that is the raw conversation, the bits of information that we're sharing, for example, right now, and other information that we hear, right now. So, and especially now, more than ever, we need hope. We need to have a piece of sharp glass that cuts us turn into a soft, beautiful, smooth glass that gives us a little bit of joy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think
So,
people recognize that,
yeah.
whether it's something that's said explicitly like that, or whether it's something that they can't put words to. Everybody, for the most part, instinctively, I think, recognizes that.
Right. I mean, the vibe that I get from you is I sense balance from you, and I think that's really important because a lot of people they don't have balance necessarily, and I don't I suffer from not having balance a lot in my life, and I have to take a minute to be mindful. And actually, I'm really proud of myself this morning. We have an extra little tiny room, and we converted it this morning into a meditation slash mindfulness room. And I'm really psyched about that because it's just a place that I can just chill and be with my thoughts. And I think I need a little bit more of that right now. So,
Mm.
if if people are feeling like they need to like make that a part of their life, just create a little nook that's a part of the house. Even go in your car. We're not using our cars right now, right? So our cars are a great place. Just to
Yeah.
that's like a it's like a second bedroom. It's a place that
Mhm.
you can just get peace and quiet and put the radio on, put the music on, or meditate, or fall
Yeah.
asleep, take a nap. So, your car is all of a sudden a new. It's your third home. It used to be Starbucks, but now it's your car.
It's that retreat.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes when I'm in my car, I'll do this and I'll just be doing a call or I'll be on it, and then I see the kids come up to the window, and they're like running and racing, and it's like little zombies that are trying to eat me. And of course, I always succumb to them because you can never say no to them. But
Mhm.
yeah. But so, how have you been overall sort of affected by current events, and how are you dealing with that, and what are some of the things that you might recommend to people?
Yeah, I mean, I have, like you said before, and thank you for saying that. It was a great compliment. You said that I seemed like I had a balance to me. Like in general, I'm a less anxious, neurotic type person, so that allows me to sort of filter better, I think. And we live at a time of such information that our filters are broken. There's always been tons of information. It's just we had narrow filters, and now our filters are just collectively broken. So what I've been handling it pretty much all right. I tune out of the speculation, the punditry of the network news, and I'm trying to get other people to basically not only think positively, but also to do things that are productive in this time. I keep trying to say, don't just go for like the continuous rush of easy entertainment. Like we all like Netflix, we all like memes, right? But don't spend all of your time consuming memes and Netflix. Like this is the time that you could actually use to your advantage. I mean, how often do you? Of course, I understand people who are actually, small business owners and people who are living paycheck to paycheck. That is a huge concern right now. I'm not trying to paint this as everybody's equally affected by it.
Yeah.
I just got another call. I don't know if you can hear me right
Yeah.
now, but basically, uh, I think that we don't often have an opportunity like this in which we can decide, in which foisted upon us is this chance to kind of introspect. Maybe what I've said to people is put together a portfolio of the things that you learn, that you create, that you think, all these things during quarantine, and then present it like once a week or something like that. Do something um, more productive, or just think about what you want to do when this is over, or have a deeper conversation with somebody who you think you know really well. You find out that you don't know them as well as you thought, or go explore, minding the social distancing rules, a place that you think you know very well, like your hometown. You probably only know 10% of the streets of your hometown. Go
Yeah.
explore another 10% of the streets. So do something productive, basically, is my advice to other people.
It's
Don't
true,
just
man.
put yourself in front of the news, in front of the memes, in front of Netflix.
Right. There are
And
some.
by the
There
way,
are. Yeah. Go.
I can't hear you at all, so
Oh, okay.
so either I'm not going to leave, but maybe there's a substitute
Yeah.
answer here, like chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll kind of wrap it here, but I think there's some really interesting topics that we discussed today. One of them is just generally, perspective, and I think that that's what a lot of us are getting right now. It's perspective, and I just encourage people to take this time to kind of reinvent yourself, and to Patrick's point, look at where you're going to be in the future, 2, 3 months from now when things are settled, and then make that your ultimate goal and start to take the actions right now to accomplish that. So I'll wrap it up here. Patrick, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And see you on the next podcast, guy.